Welcome to On the Ballot with Ballotpedia, where we connect people to politics by providing neutral, nonpartisan, and reliable information on our government, how it works, and where it's headed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Ballot, Ballotpedia's podcast about issues, policy happening around the country. I'm Norm Leahy, your host, senior editor at Ballotpedia. And, one of the things that the organization tries to do, we try to cover local politics because, let's face it, most politicians in the country are serving at the local level. And one of the places that we focus is on municipal elections. For example, the 100 largest cities in the country. And one of those cities had an election here at the beginning of August. It's the beautiful city of Seattle, Washington. And there was a mayoral race and some other races too. And to help us digest the results as they still are rolling in from those contests is Ballotpedia's staff writer, Laura Bonatesta. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on. It's good to have you talk about this because there are a lot of moving parts in this election. Can you give us the broad overview of what happened?
Yeah. So the primary was just August 5th. There were, I believe, 9 candidates on the ballot. And the two that seem to be heading, as of right now, into the general election are incumbent Bruce Harrell and Katie Wilson. And one interesting thing I want to mention about this election right off the bat is that Seattle has not reelected its mayor since 2005. So, and that was Greg Nichols in 2005. So Harrell is looking to break that trend, and Wilson is, looking to replace him. So it's going to be an interesting race for sure.
And one thing to keep in mind as well, Seattle uses mail-in ballots. So the results that we're talking about at this moment in time will change even by the end of the day. So as those and they need to be, the official count comes in August, I believe it's 19th. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
we won't actually know who finished first and second. It goes on to the general until then. But who's leading right now?
Right now, Wilson is ahead, but it's pretty tight margins. Last I checked, it was maybe a little more than 1,000 votes that she was ahead. So, it still could change. But yeah, in general, I want to say also further down the ballot, in addition to just mayor, several other incumbents in Seattle on the 5th were trailing behind their challengers. So that's definitely something that's going to be interesting moving forward. They all do seem to be advancing to the general election, but in Seattle in general, it looks like it is very possible that there could be a little bit of a change in who's running things.
Okay, that's interesting. And which brings up the obvious question: what were the big issues in this contest that seem to have given some momentum to the challengers? What were they talking about?
So it's been Wilson specifically has been very much talking a lot about affordability, homelessness,
For housing. Okay.
And those seem to be her big 3. She's also talked a lot about the budget. Seattle's going into probably a tough budget season right now, or coming up ahead. So talking about possible solutions to that. And I think it's also good to note that while this is a nonpartisan race, both candidates are Democrats, but they do have some interesting policy differences between them.
Well, what are those differences?
So kind of starting with Harrell, he kind of is running on his record, and he says he wants to build on what he started in his first term. He says that he kind of got the city through and out of the pandemic. And he is, really talking a lot about public safety. Crime rates in general have kind of gone down during his term. And so that is something he's emphasizing. He's also talked about one of the things he did was launching the care department, which was like an alternative response program where they send mental health professionals instead of police. He's also talked a lot about how he's raised hiring rates for police. Um, Meanwhile, Wilson has talked a lot about housing. One of her big things is that she wants to open up 4,000 units of emergency housing. And wants to do this through tiny homes, which she says are there and sitting empty. And the She has also talked about public safety kind of as saying issues with public safety stem a little bit from homelessness in the city, and just wanting to, focus on housing and affordability and yeah, homelessness. Those are her big three.
But both of the front runners, the people who are leading the field right now and look like they'll move on, they're well-known quantities to Seattle voters, aren't they?
Yes, they are. So Harrell, before he was mayor, was a member of the city council.
For a
Uh,
long time.
for a while, yeah, he was first elected in 2007. And before that, he was a lawyer. And Wilson has also been on the scene for a while, which I think was one of the reasons why she was kind of seen as like an immediate front runner when she entered the race. She's kind of been a progressive organizer in the area for a while. She's the co-founder of the Transit Riders Union in Seattle, and she's also pretty well known for her work with the Seattle Jumpstart tax, which was like a tax on high earning businesses, and some other things that she did, and getting passed, like advocating for and getting passed through city council uh, from the outside.
But as you mentioned at the top there, the mayor's race was not the only contest on the ballot.
Okay.
Can you give us a brief overview of some of the more important races down ballot from that?
Yeah. So one of those I think would be the city attorney's race. And that was another one where the challenger came in slightly ahead of the incumbent. Um, there were also races for a handful of city council seats. The city council president is up for election. And that's also interesting because she was also um, trailing behind her challenger. So overall, seeing like looking at media coverage since this is people have really been saying that the primary was a weeknight for incumbents, and I will say that Harrell probably of them did probably the best. He and Wilson were closer than the incumbent city attorney and her challenger was, and the incumbent city council president was. But and there was also one city council incumbent who uh did was the top vote getter in her race. So I want to mention her as well. But Yeah, it's interesting for her.
But tell me about turnout. Up, down, sideways, how did turnout look?
Turnout was relatively low as kind of expected in primary and odd year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the general election in November on November 4th, to see if these like challengers are able to maintain uh, what is looking like an early lead right now, or if the incumbents are able to overcome that.
But there was also a ballot measure that voters
Mhm.
decided to. What was that about, and what was the result? Do we know or what's the result so far, I should say?
So that result, or that ballot measure, was it Proposition 1, I believe, was to renew the a an existing tax, I believe, on that funds the city's democracy voucher program, which is a public campaign finance program, and I believe is actually it was the first of its kind in the country, that Seattle passed a few years ago now, and that's a really interesting program because basically the way it works is that Seattle voters get a certain amount of money that they can then devote to the candidate of their choosing. So that is looking like it is on track to pass. I haven't looked at the results as of this morning yet, but it was looking like yesterday. I think it was like 55 to 40 something,
Mhm.
looking like it was going past. So
Yeah, and we really don't. To be clear, we don't really know how many votes are still outstanding, waiting to come in over the transom or through the mailbox or however it is. So the results, just to be clear, results could fluctuate between now and mid-August when the final counts are due. But let's step back. Okay, that's the overview of the landscape right now in Seattle, and people are still trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Besides a general election, the incumbent mayor had the endorsement of, tell me if I'm wrong, the governor, members of the congressional delegation, basically what some might say was, well, he had the political establishment behind it.
yes,
And it appears, with the way the numbers sit right now, that there's some weakness. There's some weakness there. It's not definitive because, of course, there's a general election still to be held. But what do you think, given the results that we've seen so far and how they may play out, especially on races further down the ballot, for that matter? What sort of ripple effects might there be across Washington state politics? Do you have a sense of that?
yeah. So, um, I mean, Seattle is known for a pretty heavily blue city, and I think it what we will be interesting to look at is that this might be an early sign of what type of candidate are Democrats kind of looking for as we finish out 2025 and head into 2026 and the midterms. So Washington State, it's a little early to tell what's going to happen with this election. Both candidates are kind of still polling really close together. Last I checked, the last two polls I looked at were within the margin of error. So it's kind of anybody's game, but it will be interesting to see. One thing I'll also mention is that I've seen people comparing Wilson to the Zoran Mamdani of Seattle. If you followed the New York City election, Democratic primary at all, and she has even said that there are similarities. So she's kind of gotten a little bit of that hype that he got. So it'll be interesting to see, yeah, what happens and the ripple effects. Um, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, exactly. But just like the New York City mayoral race, there's still a long way to go
Yeah.
between primary and general election. And as anybody who's followed politics even remotely knows, even one day on the political calendar is a lifetime for the rest of us in the real world. So when we say that anything can happen, it usually does, will, and gets busiest in October. But Laura, of course, we'll be following this and other races across the country at the municipal level this year and off year, because remember, we may say it's an off year election, but elections never stop.
Nope.
Elections never stop, and Ballotpedia is here to cover all of them. Laura Bonatessa, a staff writer and all around good egg at Ballotpedia. Thanks for joining us. You're on the ballot. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And if you want to follow all of these other municipal races and results, please check out Ballotpedia. Subscribe to the Daily Brew. You can read Laura's fine work there. She does a great job as one of the main reporters there. And of course, you can follow us on the ballot wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube, and we encourage you to do so. But until then, until our next episode, I'm Norm Leahy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the digital pages of Ballotpedia. Take care.